Most cancer survivors never become cancer thrivers, not because they can't, but because nobody ever shows them how. In this video, I'm going to show you the 5 lifestyle shifts that I see over and over again in the people who move beyond survival mode and who start building a life that feels meaningful, energized, and alive again. I'm Kathryn, a stage 4 colon cancer thriver of more than 10 years, your cancer coach, and the author of Living to Thrive, a holistic guide to living with cancer. And I'm someone who has spent years helping people who are living with a cancer diagnosis to navigate life during and after cancer. One of the biggest misconceptions about cancer is that healing only happens through medical care, surgeries, and treatment. But in reality, healing actually happens in the hundreds of small decisions that you make every single day. I have worked with people who were declared cancer-free, but felt exhausted, disconnected, fearful, and lost in their lives. And I've also worked with people living with cancer who felt grounded, purposeful, hopeful, and deeply engaged in their lives. The difference wasn't their diagnosis. The difference was they learned how to live. What I've discovered is that thriving follows a pathway, not a perfect straight pathway, but a pathway that looks something like this. You start as a survivor, just getting by day to day. Then you become a rebuilder where you start learning how to care for yourself differently. And from there, you start to create a life that feels meaningful regardless of cancer. And this is where you become a cancer thriver. Now, you may not even realize that that is a possibility, not because you don't want this, but because no one has taught you that there's a path to follow. So let's walk through the 5 shifts that help make that possible. Shift number 1 is to stop waiting to feel better before living. Many survivors feel that life will begin again when things are normal, after treatments, after the next scan, after surgery, after the fear goes away. And I understand that thinking. I spent years believing that I would finally relax when I reached the future point where everything felt certain and where I would reach that goal of 5 years, no evidence of disease. The problem is that day never came for me. I have been living with the uncertainty of stage 4 colon cancer for the last 10 years, and I have never reached no evidence disease for 5 years. When I decided that I wanted to start rebuilding my life and thrive, I started to see that waiting isn't an option. And when you see that waiting isn't an option, you stop saying, I'll be happy when. And instead, you start asking, what is available to me today? Can I enjoy this walk, this conversation, this cup of tea, this moment? Small moments become the building blocks of a meaningful life. And that's where the difference between just surviving and thriving begins. The second shift is caring for your body without trying to control everything. So many survivors get stuck in that part of cancer where you want to control everything because you feel like your life is out of control. They become convinced that if they can just find the perfect diet, the perfect supplement, the perfect routine, that they can eliminate that uncertainty that they feel. And the truth is that cancer creates a powerful desire for control. I understand that. You understand that. Most survivors just want some control in their life. So they start researching everything, micromanaging everything, second-guessing every choice and decision that they're making to support themselves. And eventually, self-care starts to feel like a full-time job and your joy goes down. Here's the key to this step of the pathway. Thrivers take excellent care of themselves, but they do it from a place of support, not fear. They move their bodies because movement feels good. They nourish themselves because their body deserves it. They rest because recovery matters, not because they're terrified they'll make a mistake, but because creating a meaningful partnership with your body matters. If you're realizing how much anxiety has been driving your decisions, I want to help. I've created a free guide to managing anxiety with cancer that gives you practical tools to help you feel calmer and more grounded. You'll find the link below. Now let's continue because this next shift is one of the most important. The third shift is learning to manage your mindset. Cancer doesn't just affect your body, it affects your thoughts. And if you're living in survivor mode, you're likely experiencing fear of recurrence, scanxiety, worst case scenarios, the constant what if. These thoughts can quietly consume an enormous amount of energy. And many survivors spend years trapped in this mental survivor mode. As you move on to the rebuilder step of the path, what happens is that survivors don't eliminate fear. They learn how to relate to it differently. They recognize fear without letting it run their lives. They create practices that help them to stay grounded. They journal, meditate, pray. They go out in nature. They practice breathing exercises. They join support groups. They get coaching, whatever works for them. Because the goal is never to feel afraid. The goal is learning that fear doesn't have to be in charge. And this moves you closer to thriving. So far, you've learned to stop waiting to feel better before starting to live your life, that you can care for your body without trying to control everything, and that learning to manage your mindset matters on this path to thriving. Next, I'm going to share with you the key that will unlock the door to becoming a cancer thriver. Our fourth shift is to build a support system. I talked about this in my video, The Art of Asking for Help After Cancer Treatment, so you can go and watch that video. But right now, let's be honest. Living in survivor mode can feel lonely, and thriving never happens in isolation. One of the biggest mistakes that I see people make is trying to carry everything themselves. The appointments, the emotions, the responsibilities, the fear, the uncertainty. And eventually, it all becomes overwhelming. Thrivers rebuild their lives by intentionally creating support. Who it is matters less than the principle that you were never meant to do this alone. Support isn't weakness. Support is strategy. And it's one of the fastest ways to move from surviving to thriving. In this last step, I'm going to give you all of the pieces that ties all of this together. The last shift is finding purpose again. This is the shift that changes everything. This is where you are rebuilding your life because you are learning how to care for yourself differently. We know cancer takes a lot from you, but it also has a way of making us ask deeper questions. Questions like, what matters most? What do I want my life to stand for? How do I want to spend the time I have? For me, part of the answer became helping other people navigate their cancer story. That's why I wrote Living to Thrive, a holistic guide to living with cancer. In the book, I talk about benchmarks and strategies that help you to move forward physically, emotionally, and spiritually. And those moments matter. But here's what is really important to know. And I want you to lean in here and listen to this part. Thrivers stop focusing only on what has been taken from them. And instead, they start noticing what life still has to offer. Connection to themselves and others, meaning in life, growth in their self-belief, purpose to get up every day and keep moving forward, and the joy in little things. Not necessarily every day, but often enough to transform how life feels. The way to get started is to do this activity. I call it the Build Your Future You visualization. Start by getting comfortable, either seated on a chair, on the ground, or even lying down, and take a few deep, calming breaths. Step 1 is to imagine yourself standing on the path with a bridge in front of you. This represents where you are now on your cancer pathway. And on the other side of the bridge is future you. This is the version that you want to be, that you know you can become. And in between is the bridge that you need to cross to get there. Step 2 is to picture yourself walking across the bridge. See yourself taking action along the way that will help you move forwards towards future you. Whether it's choosing to make changes to how you eat, to start exercising, to make connections with other people you love or even new people. Just choose what you believe you can do to cross that bridge. And step 3 is to picture yourself on the other side of that bridge living as a cancer thriver. What do you look like? How does that feel? How do you feel about yourself? Visualization is a powerful practice because science shows that your brain can't tell the difference between what you're visualizing and what is really happening. So picturing yourself as a cancer thriver sends messages to your brain that this is who you actually are. And combining this practice with the steps along the path to thriving will make you a cancer thriver. So let's put this all together. The pathway looks like this. As a survivor, you're just focused on getting through every single day. As a rebuilder, you're learning to care for your body, mind, emotions, and relationships. And as a thriver, you are creating a meaningful life despite uncertainty. Not because cancer disappeared, not because everything became easy, but because you learned how to fully participate in your life and to start taking back some control. And that changes everything. One thing you learned today is the method to follow the steps along the path. But the one thing I can't give you in this video is the complete path of where to start, the tools and strategies to use along the way, and someone you can connect with when you have questions or concerns along the way. That's why I created the Cancer Thriver Pathway program. It's the same program my clients use to become cancer thrivers. You get the complete Cancer Thriver Pathway system, group or private coaching with me, your cancer coach, resources to support your learning and growth, and so much more. Click the link in the description to get started. I'll see you in the next video.